You didn't notice the moment it started. There was no clear line, no obvious decision, no point where you said, "This is where things changed." It was quieter than that, subtle, almost invisible, and that's exactly why it worked. Because if it felt dangerous, you would have resisted it. But it didn't. It felt normal, reasonable, even justified. And now something feels off. Not completely broken, not completely dark, just wrong enough to disturb your peace, but not enough to explain it. And here's the part most people refuse to face. Evil rarely forces its way into your life. It waits for permission, not loud permission, not conscious permission. Small openings, tiny doors, things you allow, tolerate, excuse. And once those doors open even slightly, something begins to move through them, not all at once, gradually, quietly, until one day you feel the weight of something you never meant to carry, and you call it stress, you call it confusion, you call it a season. But it didn't start as a season, it started as an opening. And if you don't see that, you'll keep trying to fix the symptoms while leaving the door wide open. The first door doesn't look like darkness, it looks like agreement, not with something obviously wrong, with something slightly off. A thought you entertained longer than you should have. A feeling you justified instead of questioning. A narrative you accepted because it matched your mood. It doesn't come as a lie you immediately reject. It comes as something that sounds almost true. And that's what makes it dangerous. Because once you agree with something that isn't aligned, even internally, you give it space. You give it influence. And influence always grows if it's not confronted. Think about the last time you sat with a thought that pulled you away from clarity. Not completely, just enough to distort how you saw something. Maybe it was about yourself, maybe about someone else, maybe about God. And instead of challenging it, you let it stay. You replayed it, you justified it, you built on it. And over time, that thought stopped feeling foreign. It started feeling like truth. That's how the door opens. Not through action, through agreement. And once agreement is established, everything else becomes easier. Your decisions shift, your reactions change, your perception adjusts. And before you realize it, you're no longer standing where you used to. You've moved. Slightly, quietly, but enough to change direction. And direction is what determines outcome. This is where most people get stuck, because they think the problem is what they did. But the real problem is what they accepted before they did anything. Because behavior follows belief. And if the belief is compromised, the outcome will be too. The second door is even more deceptive because it feels like relief. It's emotional indulgence, not emotion itself. Emotion that you choose to stay in, to feed, to revisit, anger that you replay, offense that you keep alive, fear that you return to even when it's no longer necessary. And again, it doesn't feel like a door. It feels like processing. It feels like being honest with yourself. But there's a difference between feeling something and building a home inside it. Because whatever you return to repeatedly, you strengthen. And what you strengthen begins to shape you. There's a moment, and you've felt it before, where you could let something go. You know it, you sense it, you feel the option to release it. But instead, you go back. You replay the conversation. You revisit the hurt. You relive the moment. And each time you do that, you deepen the groove. You make it easier to return there again. Until it becomes automatic. And once something becomes automatic, it becomes a door. Because now it doesn't need effort, it's your default. And anything that becomes your default begins to control your direction. This is why some people feel stuck in cycles they can't explain. Not because something external is holding them, but because something internal keeps reopening the same door. And as long as that door stays open, nothing truly changes. You can pray, you can try, you can want something different, but you keep returning to the same place. And that place keeps feeding the same outcome. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. Because closing that door doesn't require more effort. It requires letting go of something that feels justified. And most people would rather stay right than be free. The third door doesn't look spiritual at all. It looks like distraction, constant input, constant noise, constant movement. You're always consuming something, watching, listening, scrolling, filling every quiet moment with something external. And again, it feels harmless. It feels like normal life. But here's what most people don't realize. Silence is where clarity forms. And when you remove silence completely, you remove the space where alignment happens. You stop noticing things. You stop hearing what matters. You lose sensitivity, not all at once, gradually. And when sensitivity fades, discernment fades with it. You no longer feel when something is off. You no longer catch things early. You no longer recognize shifts inside you. And that creates a perfect environment for influence to grow unnoticed. Because what you don't detect, you don't confront. And what you don't confront stays. This is why some people suddenly feel overwhelmed, disconnected, unclear, not because something attacked them out of nowhere, but because they lost the ability to notice when things started shifting. And that loss began the moment silence disappeared. Because without silence, everything blends together. Truth and noise, clarity and confusion, guidance and impulse. And once those lines blur, direction becomes unstable. And when direction becomes unstable, anything can take over. And by the time you realize it, you're already far from where you started. The fourth door is one people defend the most because it feels like protection. It's selective obedience, not rebellion, not rejection, just choosing what you follow and what you quietly ignore. You listen when it's comfortable. You respond when it's convenient. You adjust when it doesn't cost too much. But the moment something requires real change, real surrender, real discomfort, you pause. You delay, you reinterpret, you soften it until it fits your current life. And again, it doesn't feel like disobedience. It feels like balance. It feels like you're being reasonable. But selective obedience is still disobedience, because alignment doesn't work in parts. It's not something you can divide into areas you follow and areas you control. The moment you decide that some things are negotiable, you step out of full alignment. And once that happens, something shifts, not dramatically, internally. Your sensitivity lowers, your conviction weakens, your response time slows, and over time, what used to feel clear becomes blurred. You stop recognizing urgency. You stop moving quickly when something is revealed. You start thinking more, analyzing more, delaying more, and that delay becomes the door. Because timing matters more than most people realize. There are things that only open when you respond immediately. There are moments that carry weight, and once they pass, they don't return the same way. And when you repeatedly hesitate in those moments, you don't just miss opportunities. You train yourself to ignore alignment, and eventually, you stop noticing it altogether. This is why some people say they don't hear anything anymore. It's not that nothing is being revealed. It's that responsiveness has been weakened to the point where clarity no longer leads to action. And without action, clarity fades. And when clarity fades, influence takes its place. The fifth door is the one almost no one sees, because it hides behind something that feels completely harmless. It's unguarded access. What you allow into your mind without filtering it. What you watch, what you listen to, what you expose yourself to repeatedly. Not once, not occasionally, consistently. And again, the danger is not in obvious darkness. It's in subtle distortion. Messages that slightly shift your perception. Content that slowly normalizes what once felt off. Conversations that introduce ideas you would have rejected before, but now feel less sharp, less clear. And over time, those small exposures compound. They reshape what feels normal. They adjust your internal standards. And once your standards shift, your decisions follow. Because you don't act outside of what feels acceptable, you act within it. And if what feels acceptable has been quietly redefined, then your actions will reflect that without you even noticing. This is why guarding what you allow in matters more than most people think. Because what enters repeatedly stays, and what stays shapes, and what shapes directs. You don't need something extreme to change your direction. You just need consistent exposure to something slightly off. And over time, that slight shift becomes your new baseline. And once that happens, everything else adjusts around it. This is how doors stay open without being noticed, because nothing feels drastically wrong. Everything just feels slightly different, slightly less clear, slightly less sharp, slightly less aligned. And that slightly is enough. Enough to change your reactions, enough to change your decisions, enough to change your path. And by the time you recognize it, you're already living in the outcome of something you never consciously chose. And that's what makes these doors so dangerous. They don't demand attention. They avoid it. They blend in. They become part of your routine, your thinking, your environment. Until one day you start asking why things feel blocked, heavy, unclear. And the answer is not something that suddenly appeared. It's something that was quietly allowed. And once it was allowed, it stayed. The problem is not that these doors exist. The problem is that once they open, they don't close on their own. And this is where most people get it completely wrong. They think if they just pray more, feel more, try harder, things will shift back. But nothing shifts if the door is still open. You can fight symptoms all day, but if the source remains untouched, the pattern repeats. And that's why some people feel like they're going in circles. They have moments of clarity, moments of peace, moments where things seem to lift, and then it all comes back. Not because they failed, because they never removed what was feeding it. And this is where it gets uncomfortable. Because closing these doors is not emotional, it's decisive. It requires you to confront something you've been tolerating and make a clean break from it. Not gradually, not "I'll work on it." A decision, a line, a clear shift in direction. And most people hesitate right there. Because once you see it clearly, you lose the option of pretending you don't. You either act or you knowingly allow it to stay. And allowing it to stay becomes a choice, not a mistake. That's why awareness is so dangerous. It removes excuses. And without excuses, you're left with responsibility. But responsibility is the very thing that restores control. Not control over everything around you. Control over what you allow. And what you allow is what shapes your life. Every door you opened started with something small, a thought, a feeling, a choice, something you didn't think mattered enough to confront. And now you see where that led. So the way back is not complicated, it's precise. You don't fix everything. You close what you already recognize, one door at a time, completely, without negotiation. Because partial closure is still access. If something still has space in your life, it still has influence. And influence is enough to keep a pattern alive. This is why some people say they've tried to change, but nothing stayed different. Because they didn't fully remove what was feeding the old pattern. They reduced it, they limited it, they controlled it, but they didn't close it. And controlled access is still access. And as long as something has access, it can return. And if it can return, it will. Not immediately, but eventually. And when it does, it feels even harder to deal with because now you've already tried before. And that creates doubt. And doubt weakens action. And weak action doesn't close anything, it just delays the next cycle. So if you're going to change something, it has to be complete. Not emotional, not temporary, structural. a real shift in what you allow and what you no longer accept. And that kind of shift is not comfortable because it requires you to let go of something that has become familiar, something that feels like part of you, but it's not part of you. It's something you allowed long enough that it feels like you. And once you separate yourself from it, you realize how much it was shaping you. Your thoughts become clearer, your reactions become calmer, your direction becomes steady again. And that's when you start to feel the difference, not as a sudden breakthrough, but as a steady return to alignment. And alignment changes everything. It changes how you think, how you decide, how you move. It removes friction, it restores clarity, it brings back sensitivity. And once sensitivity returns, you start catching things early again. You notice shifts before they grow. You recognize patterns before they repeat. And that's how you stay free, not by fighting constantly, but by staying aware enough to never let the door open the same way again. And that's the level most people never reach, not because it's impossible, but because it requires consistency, not once, not for a few days, as a way of living. And if you don't build that, you'll always be reacting instead of preventing. And reacting is always harder than preventing. Always. And this is the moment where most people slow down, not because they don't understand, but because they do. Because now it's no longer information. Now it's personal. You've already identified at least one door. You felt it immediately. You didn't need to analyze it. You didn't need more explanation. It was clear. And that clarity is dangerous because it demands something. It demands a response, not later, not when you feel ready, now. And this is where almost everyone hesitates. They think about it, they sit with it. They tell themselves they'll deal with it soon. But soon is the most comfortable way to keep a door open, because nothing changes in soon. Everything stays exactly where it is. And that's how cycles survive. Not through force, through delay. So here's the real question. Not what the doors are, not how they opened. Whether you are actually willing to close them completely, without leaving space for them to return. Because closing a door is not about feeling strong. It's about deciding clearly. It's about removing access. It's about changing what you allow without negotiating with it. And that kind of decision exposes something most people avoid. It shows you what you're actually attached to. Because if you hesitate to remove something, it means it still holds value to you, even if you know it's harmful, even if you know it's blocking you. That hesitation reveals attachment. And attachment is what keeps doors open longer than anything else. You don't struggle to remove what you've already let go of. You struggle with what you're still holding on to. And once you see that, everything becomes sharper. You stop asking, why is this happening? And you start asking, why am I keeping this? And that shift changes how you move. Because now it's not about external pressure. It's about internal honesty. And honesty leads to action when you don't avoid it. Because you can't unsee what you've already recognized. You can only ignore it. And ignoring it comes with a cost, not immediately, but consistently. It shows up in your thinking, in your reactions, in your direction. You feel it in small ways at first. Lack of clarity, lack of peace, lack of momentum. And over time, those small things build into something heavier, something harder to shift. And that's when people start searching for answers, looking for something new, something different, something that will fix what feels off. But the answer was already there. The door was already visible. It just wasn't closed. And no new information fixes an open door. Only action does. So instead of searching for something else, come back to what you already know. The one thing you recognized, the one thing that stood out, the one thing you almost wanted to ignore. That's where your focus needs to go. Not everywhere, not everything at once. There, because once that closes, something shifts immediately. not everything, but enough to show you that you're moving in the right direction. And that's how change builds. One clear decision followed by another, not driven by emotion, not driven by pressure, driven by clarity. And clarity becomes stronger every time you act on it. Because action reinforces awareness, it sharpens it, it stabilizes it. It makes it part of how you live, not just something you felt once. And once that happens, you stop living reactively. You stop waiting for things to go wrong before you adjust. You start living intentionally. You catch things early. You correct them quickly. You don't give them space to grow, and that's where real authority comes back. Not loud, not dramatic, stable, quiet, unshakable. Because now you're not fighting everything around you. You're controlling what you allow within you, and that changes everything. Because what you allow determines what stays, and what stays determines what grows, and what grows determines where you end up. So if you want a different outcome, it won't come from wishing for it. It will come from closing what no longer belongs in your life, completely, and keeping it closed. Not just today, not just while it's clear, as a standard, as a boundary, as something that is no longer negotiable. And once that becomes real for you, you won't need to ask why things feel different. You'll know, because nothing is slipping through anymore. Nothing is quietly shaping your direction without your awareness. You're present, you're aligned, you're steady. And that's where everything begins to open again. Not because something new was added, but because what was in the way is no longer there. There is one more thing you need to understand, and this is where almost everyone breaks the process without realizing it. They close the door, but they don't change the pattern that opened it. And because of that, the same door opens again later, sometimes in a different form, sometimes through a different situation, but with the same root. And when that happens, it feels like nothing worked. Like you tried, you changed something, but it didn't last. And that frustration pushes people back into passivity. They stop taking it seriously. They stop responding quickly. They start thinking, this is just how it is. And that right there reopens everything, because doors don't just open through actions. They open through patterns. The way you think, the way you react, the way you process things. If that stays the same, then eventually the same results return. So closing a door once is not enough. You have to remove the pattern that made it possible. And that requires a deeper level of awareness, not just seeing what you did, but understanding why you allowed it, what made it feel acceptable, what made it easy to ignore, what made it feel normal. Because once you identify that, you cut the root, not just the surface. And when the root is removed, the pattern loses its power. This is why some people experience real change, and others repeat cycles. Not because one is stronger, but because one went deeper. They didn't just stop the behavior, they changed the way they think about it. They changed how they respond to it. They changed what they tolerate internally. And that's what made the difference permanent. And this is where your attention needs to shift now. Not just what door do I need to close, but what pattern do I need to break so this never opens again? Because if you don't ask that, you'll end up fighting the same thing later, and every time it comes back, it becomes harder to confront. Not because it's stronger, but because you start losing confidence in your ability to deal with it. And that's what leads to quiet surrender, not open defeat, quiet acceptance. The moment where you stop resisting something and start living with it. And once that happens, it becomes part of your identity, not because it belongs there, but because it stayed there long enough. And that's the most dangerous point, because once something feels like part of you, you stop separating yourself from it. You stop fighting it. You start justifying it. And from there, everything becomes harder to shift. So don't let it get there. Don't let something that entered through a small opening become something that defines you, because it doesn't have that authority unless you give it time. And time is what you control. what you allow to stay, what you remove quickly, what you deal with immediately. That's where your power is, not in controlling everything around you, but in controlling what you allow to take root inside you. And once you take that seriously, everything changes. You become sharper, faster to respond, less tolerant of what feels off, more aware of what matters, and that awareness protects you, not by making life easier, but by making you stronger, more stable, more grounded, because now you're not reacting late, you're responding early, and early response is what prevents cycles from forming. It stops things before they grow, before they settle, before they become patterns. And that's the difference between someone who is constantly struggling and someone who stays aligned. It's not perfection, it's awareness followed by immediate action, every time, without delay, without overthinking, without negotiation. And that kind of consistency creates something powerful. Not in a visible way, internally. A kind of stability that doesn't shake easily. A kind of clarity that doesn't fade quickly. A kind of direction that doesn't change based on how you feel. And once that becomes your normal, you stop feeling like things are working against you, because nothing is slipping through unnoticed anymore. Nothing is building quietly behind your back. You see it early. You deal with it immediately. And because of that, it never becomes something bigger. And that's where real change settles, not as a moment, as a way of living. And this is where everything either locks in or slowly falls apart again. Not because you didn't understand, not because you didn't feel it, because you didn't decide what this becomes after this moment. Most people treat clarity like an experience, something they feel, something that moves them for a while, something they remember later. But clarity was never meant to be experienced. It was meant to be used. And if you don't use it immediately, it starts fading. Not all at once. Quietly, you begin to question what felt obvious. You begin to soften what felt firm. You begin to delay what needed action. And within days, sometimes hours, you're back in the same pattern, not because you chose it again, but because you didn't replace it. And this is the part no one talks about. Closing a door creates space, and if you don't fill that space intentionally, something else will. Because empty space never stays empty. It gets filled by whatever is closest, whatever is easiest, whatever requires the least resistance. That's why change fails for most people. They remove something, but they don't replace it. They stop one pattern, but leave a gap where it used to be. And eventually, something familiar returns to fill it, not because it's stronger, but because it's known. And the mind always returns to what it knows when nothing new is established. So if you close a door, you must build something in its place, not later, immediately. If you remove a thought pattern, replace it with one that is grounded and clear. If you cut off a habit, establish a different response in the exact moment that habit used to show up. If you stop allowing certain input, decide what will take its place before the silence feels uncomfortable. Because that moment of discomfort is where most people go back. Not because they want to, but because they didn't prepare for it. And preparation is what makes change stable. Not motivation, not intensity, structure, a clear shift in what you do, how you respond, what you allow, what you repeat. That's what locks it in. And once it's locked in, it stops feeling forced. It becomes natural. It becomes your new default. And that's when you know something has actually changed. Not when you feel different for a moment. When you respond differently without thinking about it. And that only happens when repetition builds something stronger than what was there before. This is why consistency matters more than anything else you've heard. Not because it sounds right, but because it's the only thing that rewires patterns. One decision is not enough. One moment is not enough. It's the repetition of that decision until it becomes automatic, until it no longer requires effort. until it replaces what used to happen without your awareness. And once that happens, you don't fight the same battles anymore, not because they disappeared, but because they no longer have access. The door is not just closed. It's irrelevant. And that's where real freedom begins. Not when something is removed, when it no longer has a place to return to. And if you stay here long enough, if you actually follow through on what is clear to you right now, you will start noticing something that doesn't need explanation. Things will feel lighter, not perfect, clear. Your thinking will stabilize. Your reactions will slow down. Your decisions will stop feeling forced. And what used to confuse you won't anymore. Not because you learned something new, because you removed distortion. And once distortion is gone, direction becomes obvious. And when direction is obvious, movement becomes natural. And when movement is natural, results follow. Not instantly, but steadily. And that's the difference between chasing change and becoming someone who lives in it. So don't walk away from this like it was just another moment. Decide what this becomes. Decide what you are no longer allowing. Decide what you are replacing it with, and act on it before this clarity fades, because it will fade if you leave it unused. But if you move now, even in a small way, you anchor it, you make it real. You turn something internal into something that shapes your life externally. And once that happens, you won't need reminders. You won't need motivation. You'll have direction. And direction is what keeps everything moving, even when you don't feel anything at all. And that's how doors stay closed. Not through effort, through alignment that no longer allows them to open again.